Time. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
So let's start with the reception. And I want to say that a little bit later in the broadcast, we're going to be playing some of the highlights of the governor's State of the State speech. But he did break with both his base and with things he's said in the past in this speech, primarily with the expansion of Medicaid. What was the reception in the chamber like to that speech?
It was different. This is the third time I've gone to Tallahassee to cover the State of the State, and it was immediately a different vibe. It really was kind of the softer, fuzzier governor, if you will. He talked about his mom a lot. There was a lot of personal anecdotes. He kind of pulled people up from the audience that had softer stories. So it was a side of him that we haven't seen. And I think anytime the Democrats in the chamber give a standing ovation to a Republican governor, you know you have a little bit of a different speech.
In the last 2 weeks, there has been a sense of who are you and what have you done with Rick Scott among some people. And certainly, not judging or editorializing, but he does have a re-election to win, and I don't know with his popularity where it has been through the bulk of his first term. I assume he needs to do something about those numbers to get in the governor's mansion again.
Well, it was interesting. Right after the speech, I was talking to Rep. Mia Jones, and she was, beaming ear to ear, so excited. And she said, this really is a different governor. And she made the point that he has a lot of different people around him now. She kind of inferred he's being advised by different people. He's taking a different approach. And her quote was, I think Governor Scott is starting to understand there's more to Florida than big business. And she seemed really encouraged by that.
All right, now I want your take on pluck out whatever you want to talk about, some of the bills that you think will be the most interesting, the weirdest, some of the highlights of this session.
My favorite, hands down, is the bill that would require legislators to be nice to each other. And it's just like such a ridiculous proposal to begin with, because all the people we talked to said, even if that is a bill, no one's going to follow it. And basically they would have to sign an oath when they decided to run for office that said, you know, na boo boo, no more. I'm not going to be mean to anybody. I'm not going to name call. I'm not going to throw these missiles. I'm just going to be kind, be nice, and stick to the issue.
Now, is the intent of this, and it does seem a little bit silly, but is the intent to clean up the discourse on the campaign trail, or once the actual governing begins?
It's more the campaign trail. It's when you decide to run for office. Basically, the idea is when you filed to run for a specific position, you would then sign this oath that says, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to keep the campaign about the issues. And I spoke with Senator Bradley, who said, look, you know, I just ran in Orange Park. My opponent and I signed that oath. They had kind of an agreement between the two candidates that they weren't going to do it. And he said, I thought it was a much better campaign because we really could focus on the issues when you're not mudslinging the whole time.
Well, it seems a bit quixotic, but we'll see what becomes of that.
We shall see.
Let's talk some other ones. Let's see. Medicinal marijuana is going to come up this session.
That is one that's definitely going to be a talker. If I had to, you know, step back and make a guess, I'd say it doesn't have much of a shot. But
although the majority of Floridians do support it.
They do. I kind of did an informal poll just while I was there talking to different legislators, and I couldn't get one to say that they were behind it. And I probably talked to 15 or 16 people, and all of them said, I just don't.
In different parties?
Yes.
Interesting.
And they said, I just don't think it's the time for this bill. But it's interesting that it's become a discussion. And I think that when you're looking at other states who have started to pass this, I mean, you're going to see it talked about.
There was, an opening day of session is never without protesters, but there was a rather rancorous group inside the corridor. I think we might have some video of them. Who were they, and what were they trying to accomplish out there?
Okay, so this is a group that was formed after Trayvon Martin's death, and they say they're focused on racial equality in Florida. They're focused on education in Florida. They're focused on jail sentences for youth. And I mean, they were loud. You can look in the video right there. You can see they formed this corridor all the way down the hallway. And they wanted the legislators to walk through that corridor before they went into session. And I spoke with the executive director and I said, what are you hoping to hear from opening day? And he said, nothing. I don't expect to hear anything that I want on my agenda today, but we're going to be here every single day of the session. We're going to be in Tallahassee because we want to send a message that this is a group that maybe hasn't been involved in politics in the past, but is ready to make their voices heard.
So Stand Your Ground will likely come up again this session.
Absolutely. There's actually a bill on the table right now for an expansion of Stand Your Ground. And so under that bill, not only would it be a personal protection shot, you shoot someone that you feel like your life is in danger, it would also include a warning shot and protecting someone around you. So if I were with you and somebody lunged for you, I would then be justified in shooting that person if I thought your life was in danger. So it's a really very expanded version of Stand Your Ground, which it is interesting to see how that's going to come through, because they just had a huge panel that went throughout the state to decide if Stand Your Ground should even be a law anymore.
And the findings were it was a valid, solid law.
Right.
So we have seen these very ugly, and ugly is way too weak a word to describe the scene of the Westboro Baptist Church protest at these military funerals. That likely will be addressed in this session.
And that was one that had so much support, I can't tell you. The bill that's proposed right now would ban any sort of protesting outside of funerals. They would have to stand 100 or so yards back from any funeral or procession. And it didn't mention the Westboro Baptist Church by name, but that's what the bill is about. We've had a couple very, very ugly instances in Florida.
And by the way, interrupt you while we're talking, that's what that video is on the right, is that group protesting. I'm not sure where that is, but that's the group, and you kind of get the sense of the vitriol that they carry at these funerals.
Right, and again, that was a bill that just everyone I talked to said that's a great idea. There's just no reason that should be going on, and even your really staunch First Amendment supporters said that this just isn't covered.
All right, and a smoking ban they're going to take up. This will be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it was actually proposed by a local senator. Senator Bradley of Orange Park said when he goes to the beach, to a park with his family, he doesn't want to be around cigarettes. He doesn't want to look at the cigarette butts on the ground. And so it would actually allow each town or municipality to decide their own law. So it wouldn't cover everywhere in the state. This would basically give each city the right to decide where they want to allow smoking. So the example that he brought up was in South Florida, there are a lot of places where people can sit and have cigars. So he said maybe, all right, we keep this open to cigar smokers, but we're going to ban cigarette smokers. His point was the way that the Florida law is written right now is it just says you can't touch it no matter what, smoking is allowed everywhere. And he said he wants to step back from that and allow the local places to decide what's right for them. And
finally, before I let you go here, during the State of the State, the governor brought up that he wants to give teachers more money and just an across-the-board pay raise, and it wasn't necessarily attached to any sort of performance, which that breaks with what he has said before. What was the reaction to that? Did I assume the Democrats stood up and the Republicans stayed seated?
You hit it on the head right there. It was a really interesting moment because right before he outlined what his plans were for the teacher pay raises, he said, it was kind of like this meditative moment. All right, I want all of you to think about a teacher who has impacted your life. Think about the teacher that you've loved the most, that has made a difference in your life. Now, everyone in the chamber stand and remember that teacher. And some people really got into it. Some people looked a little bit awkward. It was this very strange moment that definitely broke the cadence of the speech. And then when everybody sat back down, he said, okay, now here's the plan. We're going to give each teacher $2,500 because teachers need to be paid and this needs to happen. And then the Democrats were back on the feet and the Republicans were sitting down.
Well, I tell you what, it's certainly going to be interesting, and buckle up. The fun just begins. The first of many trips, I assume, for you ahead to Tallahassee.
Absolutely, we will be going back.
All right, you're very kind to make time for us. Thank you very much.
You.
The wonderful Caitlin Ross, everybody. President Obama has undergone a significant evolution in his stance on gay marriage.